Hey guys, welcome back to Off the Water. I'm your host, Darth Yacker. Got a great show tonight. I'm happy to say I've got two really good friends of mine, Brendan Bayard, Kalon Johnson, uh, both great guys. I met them both through Bayou Coast Kayak Fishing Club, and they've been good enough to come on the show tonight, talk to us a little bit about fishing. Brendan just won the IFA championship that took place here in Louisiana a couple weeks ago. It was a great win over a lot of really great fishermen. So we're going to have Brendan on to talk about that. Also got Kalon Johnson on, the Redfish assassin himself. Kalon's known throughout the state and the South for being just an excellent red fishing guy. He's going to come on and talk to us a little bit about, talk to a little bit about himself. We can learn a little bit about him. Also going to talk to us about maybe some tactics and some baits to use for this weekend's upcoming Rumble on the River tournament. Real quick, though, before we get to them, I want to give a big shout out to Clayton Schilling, one of our club members, former officer. He went down to Gunnersville, Alabama recently for the Hobie Bass Open. And despite being a saltwater guy, Clayton managed to squeak out a fourth place finish amongst a group of really great anglers down there. I think they had 80-something guys fishing. But, this is a lake. It's bass fishing. It's something really a lot of us aren't used to. And certainly we catch some bass down in Delacroix and things like that. But these were black bass. I think they were catching some really beautiful bass. Some of them going over 20 inches. So big shout out to Clayton. Great job over there. We had a couple other members that did really well as well. Very proud of them. I think it was Wayne Lobb that I think he was in the top 10 the first day. He may have finished in 11th place, I think, but he did really good. Brandon Barton, Matthew Van had both really good days, first days. So just really great for those guys to get up there, represent the club. Clayton obviously representing the state of Louisiana up there, and so real proud of them. I know Tyler and I are going to be down there in 2 weeks. Chuck Bayhan, I think, is going with us, and maybe a couple other guys. And we're going to be fishing the Native Titan tournament, still on Lake Gunnersville. It's a one-day tournament in 2 weeks. Any of you guys are interested in fishing a big bass tournament over there, it's about a 7-hour drive. Drop me or Tyler a line. Certainly we can talk about it. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be a band and food, and it's just going to be a great event. So really looking forward to that. I don't do a lot of bass fishing, and I've got to go buy some new gear now. So going to be reaching out to a few of my friends here that may dabble in the freshwater and see what kind of advice they can offer me. But some of you guys are probably wondering, where's Tyler? He's here, but he's blacked out right now. He's actually got some house issues going on, some fans blowing, so he didn't want to be a distraction. He's in the back, though, in the works, running all the operations of the show. So just rest assured, everything will go smoothly as long as Tyler's in charge. So real quick, just to announce, Rumble on the River is this Saturday. We're going to be talking about a little bit more on the show. So if you haven't signed up yet, Friday at noon is probably the last day to sign up. So make sure you go ahead and get signed up. We've got, I think last count was 41 people signed up. Definitely going to hit over 50. I'm still hoping we hit 60 to 70 guys, but the weather is looking great. The redfish are everywhere right now. It doesn't matter where you fish. Highway 23, you fish St. Bernard Parish. Doesn't matter. You're going to catch some fish. You're going to have a good time. It's just, I think the temperature is supposed to be 86 degrees, some nice winds. The humidity's been dropping in the morning. So I know for a lot of those guys that haven't been fishing a lot over the summer because of the heat, this is going to be the time to get out there. You're going to make some friends. You're going to have a good time. You're going to catch some fish. And I think we're going to be serving some food over at the weigh-in this year. It's again, it's at the parking lot adjacent to Hooters on Bell Chase Highway. I think we're probably going to have some wings and some other refreshments out there for everybody. So if you want to come out there and fish, hang out with the guys, get some wings, and meet some new people, make sure you sign up. Eric Stacy's also asked me to remind you guys that Fall and Tide registration is open. Fall and Tide is next month, but the important thing to do is make sure you register before October 1st. The reason being is that we have to order T-shirts, and we need to know your size. So in order to be guaranteed a shirt and guaranteed a size, you need to make sure you order, or rather that you register before the 1st, and make sure you include your shirt size on there. So getting on to our guest now, let's go over to Brendan Bay. Oh, you know what, Brendan? I'm sorry. Before I get to you, I forgot something. My daughter has been asking me for a while to mention her on my podcast. So before I do, I've got to, my daughter lets me do this. My wife lets me do this. So what I told her when I was going to do is I had a birthday about a week and a half ago, and a lot of guys on here welcome me, thank me happy birthday. So I appreciate that, guys. But my daughter and my wife, they know me so well. What I got for my birthday, I told them I'd show everybody. I've got the electric wine opener. It's a great thing. I don't have to worry about the corkscrews. It's just you push the button and it pulls it up. So this is how great they know me. My wife also got me this wine saver. So you actually put this in your wine bottle and you pump all the air out of it, and it's supposed to keep your wine good for like 7 days. Which is funny because a bottle never lasts 2 days around here. But, in the event maybe I go out of town or something, the wine will still be good when I go back from a fishing trip. And then my daughter, Rowan, also got me. And I know this will freak out Tyler because he's got some issues with it. But enjoy massage. I got a gift card for massage. So after I take care of winning Rumble on the River, I come back. I'm a little sore after wrestling in all those redfish. Sunday I can go in and get my massage over there. So should be all good. So thank you to my wife and daughter. They make everything I do possible. I know Brendan, I'm sure Kaylin recently married here in the last year or two. No kids yet for Kaylin, but
not yet.
We all know we couldn't do what we do without our wives letting us do it. So thank you, Kim, and thank you, Rowan. So on to Brendan. Brendan, you are having a hell of a year actually with IFA. You didn't get to fish in the first tournament that took place down in Lafitte. I know you had the flu. I was waiting for you, and you had the flu, and you couldn't fish that first tournament. But you made it.
Yeah, it's a tough break. I really love fishing all the IFAs, and I haven't missed but a couple. But, every once in a while you get something that you can't control, and you just got to, play it safe. So
you wanted to fish it, though, and your wife, again, just said, you're not leaving the house this time, right?
Yeah, so she did. She knew it would probably put me under for an additional, several days if I went out already under the weather. So
yeah. Absolutely. And wives know best a lot of times. They just, guys, we're stubborn. I can fish through it. And she's like, no, you're staying home. So probably a smart thing to do. But for whatever you missed in that tournament, you certainly made it up. And the next one, the one down in, I was down in Dulac, I think we were. Somewhere down there, Dularge. It was in a strange location, but you took first place at that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you won that one, and then it sets you up for the championship. And this year, the IFA championship was in Louisiana. Now, just to give everyone a little bit of background about IFA, tell us a little bit about it. It's not just a Louisiana thing, right? I mean, these are tournaments that take place all over the South. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have I think the tournament's been going on since 2009, I believe. I think that's the first year I fished it. There was like a trial year the year before where they tweaked some formula stuff. The tournament's a catch, photo, and release tournament. It's for a trout and a redfish each day. So your maximum fish length on each species is combined into an aggregate length, and that's weighed and compared against all the other anglers, and that's how they seed you. If you have two fish, you beat anybody with one fish. So let's say one person has a 45-inch bull red, but then the other guy has a 15-inch trout and a 15-inch or 16-inch red. He would still win with the two fish. I think that's pretty standard in catch, photo, and release tournaments, where the bag fulfillment goes above the length, kind of like our tournaments do with Paddlepalooza, where the slam goes above the bigger fish. Yeah. And this first tournament was only probably about a month ago. The first tournament that I fished was only about a month ago. So really a lot of the fish that I was on really worked out for the championship. So that kind of set me up nicely.
And so these tournaments, they take place in like Florida, and I think there's some other, maybe North Carolina.
Texas division. There's a Florida East, a Florida West. There's Georgia / North Carolina, South Carolina division. They call that the Atlantic division. And then there's us in Louisiana. They used to have a Gulf division, which I really miss because I really like to go fish that one. That was in the kind of Panhandle, Alabama area.
Yeah. And so you get these competitors from all over these states, North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Georgia, Texas, Alabama, Mississippi, and they have the championship. And this year, the championship was down here in Louisiana at Grand Isle, at Bridgeside, actually.
Yeah, I think they started doing that just to make it easier for everybody. A lot of people, it's no secret, a lot of people were driving from wherever the boat tournament was to go down and fish for the bull reds that were really easy to get to in Grand Isle with all the passes near it. So I think, just for ease and enjoyment standpoint, they just started making the championship in Grand Isle for the last couple of times they've had it here in Louisiana. And it's been nice. So, everybody didn't have to drive very far and we catch some big fish.
Yeah. Now this tournament, it's IFA, which is the International Fishing Association.
Inshore Fishing Association.
Inshore Fishing Association. They actually do a boat tournament. Typically, the boat tournament's the day before the kayak tournament when you have these other, not the championship, but these other little local type tournaments over there. And Hobie's one of the sponsors of the IFA. Is that right?
Yeah, they've been sponsoring it. I guess the title sponsor, if you will, for the last 10 years. So.
Mm-hmm. And I know they've got the micro power pole. I think they're also a sponsor. I know they were giving one away at the raffle, and just some other really neat prizes. And they get some really good checks, some good payouts, considering the number of anglers that fish it. You may win $1,500 with 40 or 50 anglers out there. So it's a really good payday if you're able to place. And I know they typically pay out a good number of places for the number of anglers fishing it.
Yeah, I think they paid out 8 places at the championship, and there was 42 anglers. So pretty good.
Yeah. So now with the championship, you've got basically it's a CPR. You're fishing for your biggest redfish and trout, and unlike most tournaments, you're not limited to 27-inch redfish. It's essentially the biggest redfish you can catch because it's a CPR tournament. So the focus is obviously on catching that big bull red. And this was the first year I actually fished a championship. And essentially everybody's fishing these passes in Grand Isle because you've got these big bull reds coming out, and you can see all the kayakers, out there with, pretty big rods. They're catching what? How big are these reds they're catching out there?
I think the smallest I heard of in the past was like 35, and then the biggest was 45. So within that 15 to 30 pound range of redfish.
Yeah, and those are big fish. 35-pound bull redfish out of a kayak, you're going to get pulled a little bit. You're going to get pulled. And so, a lot of people are fishing for the bulls, and, a lot of those are running 38 to top end on the bulls this year, 40, mid 40s. I think there was 2 43s and a 45 caught. Mm-hmm. And then there was a whole bunch of 41 to 39-inch fish, which pretty much is typical. You have a lot of people in all these events that catch a 39 to 41. So if you're in that kind of range, odds are, in my opinion, just to move on. You've probably caught what you're going to catch. If you're still in the below 39-inch range, maybe try to call up a little bit bigger fish. The trout tend to separate people, especially if you can get a really big trout. So that's kind of where my focus was, and kind of always is for these tournaments when there's bulls that, available. Yeah. And the trout fishing, it hasn't been the best, at least in Grand Isle. Grand Isle's been real spotty. It seems like at times it's really good. Other times it's been really bad. They're there one day, gone the next. And so this year, the championship's in mid-September, which, it could be a little bit of a transition time for trout over there.
Usually a terrible time of year for trout.
Yeah. And so, the key really, I think going in, at least I think when we were talking earlier for you, was try to catch a big trout, realizing that, look, the bull reds are going to run 38 to 43 inches. So there's really only 5 inches separating there. A lot of these guys are catching 12, 13-inch trout. If you can catch something 20 plus, you might have a 10-inch advantage there. And so tell us a little bit about day one for you, what your kind of plan was and what you do. Because I know you came in the leader after day one, and that was significant really going forward into day two.
I always try to give myself I'll look at the lunar bite table on, the kind of available that's for everybody that shows the peak time and the minor bite feed times. This time it showed the major bite for the championship weekend was from noon to 1:30, I believe, on the first day, and then 30 minutes later the second day. So I knew that I would have an opportunity to catch trout at the end of the day, because I really believe that the trout feed a lot better during that major bite period. But I also believe that during the morning there's a time window, no matter what the bite is, that you can really catch a nice fish just as day's breaking on the water and the sun's coming up, and it's just, the kind of the golden hour in the morning, if you will. So I like to position myself with an opportunity to catch a big fish in the morning. If that doesn't work, you fall back on whatever you can get and then go bull red fishing. But then you have another opportunity later that if you didn't catch a big trout in the morning, to go ahead and try for it again in the afternoon. This time it was like the best trout I've caught all year. I've typically, only catch a handful of these trout that are over 22 inches a year. It's kind of, a fish of 1,000 casts or more, throwing topwater baits, just, finding oysters, finding structure, finding depth changes, finding, really anything that would kind of create, an island with a bank with some bait. And I have like 10 or so of these spots where I've caught big fish, and I kind of make a mental note, and then I'll just kind of cycle through them over and over and over again. Sometimes you go there and you get a swirl when you're throwing your topwater. And then sometimes I'll just like leave that place and let it like settle, come back to it 20 minutes later. And that's when, you catch your fish. Or sometimes you go right there and, they bite as soon as you throw in there. Sometimes you have to come back at a different time of day and then they bite. So, it's just kind of a waiting game and getting lucky game. And I got lucky on this trout the first day. And I couldn't even believe it, because I saw the fish kind of jump out of the water and land on top of my topwater.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
I was like, ugh. And usually they miss it when they do that,
Yeah.
because they're like really just kind of flying out of the water, being aggressive, not really slurping it under. And I just kind of sat there after it like landed on my topwater, and I was like, and so I just kind of closed my eyes and slowly started reeling, hoping that I would feel something on the end there. And lo and behold, he was hooked up. I didn't know how big it was. I could tell it was really big, but it was, at the end of my cast, because I'm always trying to approach these areas and really try to make, a 50-yard cast to them to not really kind of get near the area that I'm fishing, so I can get as many casts as I can without disturbing the zone. So I could see it was big. I didn't know how big it was. And so I just kind of gingerly kind of kept playing it out. And by the time I landed this thing, I mean, the line that was coming out of my reel was like so loose. And I was just kind of doing figure 8 motions around the boat, just keeping the tension on him, and just got my net. And I just waited forever, it felt like. And then finally netted him. And he was so hooked. It was great. The back treble hook went through his mouth, out the thin spot of skin in between his jaw, then came out and then hooked and then came back in. So, I mean, he was stuck.
You had him good.
Yeah. So
you don't know that. I mean, sometimes
you don't know
that little hook and any kind of release and tension could and they pop out and you're like, no, all my hopes and dreams.
Yeah. And then there's $3,000 to just swim away.
So how big was he?
23 inches.
23 inches.
About 4 pounds.
So you got to be feeling pretty good about that trout in September.
Oh yeah. I mean, September is the time where you catch, 23 10-inch trout, and not anything that's 23 inches. So
that's what I caught, 23 10-inch trout.
Yeah.
So
caught a lot of small fish. I only caught that one trout and then I left. It's not like I was catching a bunch of other fish. Mm-hmm. So I really set myself in an area where I thought, if there's anything over here, it's going to be big. So, you're throwing big baits. You're not going for numbers. You're just going for that one kind of prayer trout to come up and eat that bait. It worked out, and
now
then it set me up for another day of trying to catch reds.
After you caught it, did you leave, or did you just like, I got to throw a few more times just to see?
No, I left.
You left. Oh, and that's the problem though, because I know you love to catch big trout, and I love to catch big trout, and it's hard. It'd be hard for me to say, okay, I'm picking up, knowing the chances you catching a trout bigger than 23 inches are slim, very, very slim at that point. But
I had already covered that spot probably 5 times.
Really?
And cycled back through it 5 times before it finally ate. So it's not like I had just gotten to this spot that maybe might be holding a big family of big sow trout. I mean, I worked that spot over and over and over. So
wow, I don't, and that's something I don't do. I mean, when I'm fishing for trout, I'm throwing and I'm moving, and I'm throwing and I'm moving, and I'm throwing and moving. But usually I don't circle back around and keep fishing the area. It's just something to kind of to think about. I'm usually keep moving on. But that's real interesting that if you find that you've caught big trout in there, you're going to keep hitting that area at least a few times to see if you can kind of get that trout to come up and take that bait.
Yeah. And I did that the next day. I started with my bull red on day 2 just because the weather was coming in, and I wanted to make sure I had a chance to catch a bull before we potentially had a bunch of thunderstorms and wind that ran me out of the pass. But I mean, I got my bull relatively early on day 2, and that's all videoed with the camera boat, so you'll be able to see that when it comes out on the show later on this winter, I guess, or whenever. And then I did that exact same thing over and over, not concentrating so much on the exact spot, but similar spots over and over again. And it didn't work out on day 2 for whatever reason, and I had to settle with a 14-inch trout and then go and work another area. So, I mean, just because there's big trout in one area doesn't mean there's always going to be big trout. And no matter how patient you are and grind, some days it's just not going to work. I mean,
yeah. So you pick up the big trout, you run over to one of the passes, and you're able to catch a bull red. How big was your red that day?
When I got to the pass, it was probably 8:00. There was a good amount. Actually, when I first got to the pass on day 1, there was probably 5 guys fishing really close to the pass in Bayard area. Dave from South Carolina was leaving. He had just caught like his 5th red. Oh. So I was like, wow, okay, there might be some reds over here. But I mean, I was casting a 4,000 size reel with a really big broomstick, a 1.5-inch lead jig. So you work this bait over and over and over again, and it wears on your shoulder. And I'm seeing people catching fish left and right. Ty Hibbs has caught 12 reds. I think Aaron Clay's caught a bunch of reds. I mean, there's all these guys are over there like just catching tons of reds. I mean, everywhere I'm looking, people are catching reds. And I haven't caught a red, and it's like 1:00. And I'm like, man, I'm going to be this guy that catches my best trout of the year and come into the weigh-in with the goose egg.
With the goose egg on the red, on the money fish, yeah.
Yeah, so luckily, I mean, for whatever reason, they came through right at the end. Me and Joe Camiotti and some of the other guys who are right in this area, kind of close together at about the 1:30, 1:15 kind of time of day. A big pod came through, and luckily there were some nice size reds. They were like 40-inch reds and not the 36-inch reds. So I got a 41. And so me and him paddled to the beach with our reds and helped each other, pitch the tails and all that and take pictures. I think I sent a picture of to Tyler just standing on the beach holding the red. That was from day 1. After trying to catch a red for 5.5 hours, I caught 1 redfish and I was done, man. I was like, I'm going in. Because
how big was that red?
41.
41. So you're sitting there after day 1, 41 and 23, 64 inches?
Yeah.
That's how far ahead were you? What was second place at? Do you know on that day?
61 and a half.
Oh, so 3 inches behind you.
Yeah.
Wow. So a little bit closer than I would think with that big trout that you had.
Yeah. No, I mean, the guy that was in second place caught a 43. So, I mean, there was some, and then I think somebody else caught a 45 that day. There were some really big reds. So the trout not necessarily kind of sealed the deal, and especially if you didn't catch a red, it didn't matter what kind of trout you had. But
Yeah.
I really had to grind a whole lot for that first red that first day, and I was just really down in the dumps. If you talk to anybody who saw me out there, they were like, you look like you were having the worst time.
You get like and that's the problem. You've been in these tournaments, and I know Kalon and I have talked about this before. You get in those tournaments, and you need one fish, and you're grinding for like 4 or 5 hours, and to me, it's not the physical part; it's the mental part. You just start checking out, and then you get into where you're just casting, and it's just becoming a just perfunctory, I guess. You're just casting, you're not really paying attention, and you look up and you realize, man, I'm not even working this bait. I'm not even focusing. You just lose focus, and then you check out, mentally, and that's tough. I mean, to stay in it for that long for one fish, people don't realize how tough it is mentally, and to grind. I know Kalon tells me all the time. He says, I didn't catch anything, and then like at 12:30. Boom, here comes this redfish I've been looking for 6 hours, and there he is, and it helps you cross the finish line at the end of the day. So day 2, I know was a little bit rougher than day 1. Y'all had some weather come through, and it got a little windy, a little choppy out there.
Yeah, so I set my alarm for like 3 a.m. day 2, and it's really hard to concentrate when you have a lead because, I mean, I've blown a lead so many times. I mean, and I'm just in the back of my mind thinking like, I'm going to blow it. That's what I do. I'm going to blow it. Because, I mean, I was lucky enough to get to go to Hobie World when they had it in Austin, and it was a bass tournament. And for whatever reason, I was in first place after 2 days on that bass tournament in that lake, just because I was really just fishing top waters and frogs and stuff really shallow like I like to do in saltwater. And for whatever reason, they bit. And I was like, man, I'm in first place in the Hobie World.
Yeah.
And then on day 3, I caught one fish and just totally choked. So in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking like, that's going to happen again. That's going to happen. So it's a really stressful thing to go into day 2 with a lead because you don't want to disappoint yourself. I think it's always easier to come back from like an underdog mentality or like, oh, I'm 2 inches back, but I can, fight hard and make up that. I mean, not to say that I hated having a lead. It's just that it's mentally tough to deal with sometimes.
Yeah. And you kind of worried about it thinking I'm winning, and how I don't want to not win, it's, and so whereas in second place, you're not so focused on, you're thinking, okay, well, maybe I have a shot, but if I don't, hey, I went into it and you don't have those expectations, but you put a lot of those expectations on yourself. And so you get up at 3 a.m. and we couldn't launch it like
to
6,
continue
right?
that. I got up at 3 a.m. to check the front that was coming through because I wanted to make sure if the front was coming through and it looked like I was only going to have a small window right at launch time, I wanted to go to the pass so that I could have, at least like whatever the front was going to give me to fish in the pass before it typically gets windier during the day. The waves get worse, just the weather, doesn't improve as the day goes on traditionally.
Yeah.
So I looked at the weather. It looked like we were going to have a little bit of time, but it looked like at about 10 o'clock, it was just going to be solid rain everywhere. So I was torn. I didn't want to like take my foot off the gas and not try for a big trout. But if I didn't have a bull red, I didn't have anything. And it was really hard for me to catch a bull red the first day. So I went with the bull red to launch on day 2. got out there. Camera boat follows me. I basically killed an hour doing nothing but looking at my depth finder. Finally, sun starts coming up. I think me, Brandon, and Benton were kind of just, all going around different places, looking at our depth finders. And finally, we hear like a little.
Sorry about that.
A little. I think Brandon hears a little slurp, like, and he's like, "Was that a bull? Was that something just eat on the water?" And so we got excited and we started casting. He hooks up with a, those pinfish that those Florida guys are always throwing. They're like, lipless crankbaits, and then it unbuttons itself, and we're like, "Oh man, how'd that come off?" And then Benton's over there throwing a popping cork, and he hooks up on a bull red. And so, we're in the pass. He's throwing a popping cork. He catches a bull. It's awesome. And we're like, all right, there's bulls here. And so I start throwing. I hook up. I'm so tired from throwing the 4,000 size reel on the broomstick the day before. I'm throwing my little 3,000. And then I hook up. And this thing is like a bullet train, like just leaving me. So I'm pedaling, trying to catch up. The camera boat's following me. And my reel's screaming. I'm like trying to take my time to get this thing in, and it just pops my line. It just finally wears through, and I'm just like, oh. And I was like, that's gonna haunt me.
Yeah,
so,
buddy.
That was tough. And then so then I picked up the old broomstick again, and I start throwing that over and over and over again. Finally, hook up. Probably 30, 45 minutes later, catch a red. Get it measured, and then I'm a lot relieved, to get the red, get out of the pass before the weather comes. At that point, it was 8:30-ish. I'm guessing. I didn't really care how big my red was. I just wanted one red, and then I was going to go trout fishing for the rest of the day. Which
and you got them,
which was exciting for me.
Yeah.
So I left, went back to the place where I caught my big trout. Fished, only could catch a 14-inch trout. Was a little bit disappointed. And then I just went back to Bridgeside and launched like right there and planned to fish in the pass for trout until the last minute that I could, and just basically paddle up to the weigh-in if I needed to. And so I did that all day, and then I caught a 17 and then came into the weigh-in, and that was good enough.
Yeah, that was it. And Tyler just emailed me the scorecard from this weekend, and you ended up with a 2-day total of 121.75 inches, which was certainly good enough for first place. Second place was 119, so you were solid, almost 3 inches ahead. But in the grand scheme of things, 3 inches is not a lot when you talk about 4 fish. When you got bull reds and trout in there. Pretty close finish behind there. Justin Reinert?
Yeah, he was from South Carolina, man. He for a guy that never came down to fish in Grand Isle, I mean, he absolutely killed it. I mean,
he did. What an awesome finish for him. I think he also took Angler of the Year with because he'd won a couple of the regional events and then did well at the championship. Just looking real quick, the other guys that placed and that were in the money. Ben Parrott, one of your fishing partners from Florida, he took third place. Phil Spencer, Matt Carr out of Pack took fifth. Lance Burgess, another guy in the club, took sixth. Terry Pham, another guy in the club, took seventh. Scott Bienvenue took eighth. And he's over there at Pack and Paddle and fishes with the Lafayette Club. Wayne Lobb, another guy in the club, took ninth, just out of the money. So first place, I know you won the Big Trout Award for that trout. You also took the Angler Advantage Award, which is $500. And then what was first prize for you was a 2020 Pro Angler.
Yeah.
Brand new.
Yeah, it's got the new little fins that fold up. It's awesome.
That break away. And you haven't used it yet. It's for sale. Does that understand?
Yeah. So if anybody wants a new boat, give me a holler.
I understand.
If you need somebody to babysit, just let me know.
Yeah. What's that?
So if you need somebody to babysit, just let me know.
I'm trying to talk KJ into getting out, but I like that Outback. I said, man, I love it. So I like my pro angler. I says, man, but you getting that Outback, you just it's tough to go back. It's so light. It's so light. I really love the new Outbacks. The seat's more comfortable for me anyway. But Brendan, man, that's a great stories. I tell you what, I learned a lot about the trout there, and I know we want to have you back on again soon to talk about wintertime trout fishing. You always seem to find the freaking trout in the winter when no one else is catching them, especially at Minimalist Challenge. You know, you've got those techniques that you use, and I know that's been a real key to your success. And so appreciate you coming on tonight and look forward to having you back. Really learn a lot every time I get to talk to you and fish with you. So, you know, guys, if you're out there and you're ever out trout fishing and you see Brendan in that area, chances are you're in the right area. You know, just don't
don't leave. Just don't leave.
Don't leave. Don't leave. Maybe
leave when he leaves.
Sneak around the corner and see what you can see what he's doing. But great trout fisherman, one of the best I know. The guy always seems to find the trout and the big trout. So it's real funny. So going polar opposite here is Kalon.
Total opposite.
Great red fisherman. I mean, he's always catching them. I got a funny story about Kalon. Him and I were fishing. It was sometime last year. We were pre-fishing a tournament, and we're down in Golden Meadow. We're in the marsh, and Kalon's like, Sean, here's a bet, $20, 7 casts, and I'll catch a redfish. I said, I ain't giving you 7 casts to catch a redfish. You probably already got your eyes on one right now anyway. I said, I'll give you 3 casts. He said, all right, let's split it. 5 casts, I'll catch a redfish, $20. I said, all right, 5 casts, you catch a redfish. Son of a gun. I mean, like, I think it was the 4th cast. Wham. He had a redfish. I had an hour. This guy's calling his shots like Babe Ruth in the World Series, just like, right over there. I'm going to catch one right over there, you know? And same thing with Brendan. Brendan's like, right over there. I'm going to catch a big trout right over there. You just watch. Don't cast. Let me get it. He's right there. I'm going to get him. So Kalon's calling his shots in the marsh. He pulls the redfish. Look, I'm a good sport. I mean, the guy, he did it. He won it. I paid him his money. And it's a lot of fun watching him. And one of the things I've seen when I've gotten to fish with you, when I'm out red fishing, I'm throwing. I'm looking. I'm throwing. And Kalon's looking. He's like, he tells me sometimes, Sean, I mean, I cast, but maybe 20, 30 times in one day because I'm sitting there, I'm looking for him, my eyes, and I find him. And when I get him, I got him, you know. You get him. Yeah,
you got, like you said, I really don't cast that much during the tournament, especially if it's sight fishing conditions. Once you do it for a while, you get used to being able to pick out the right size fish. So if you see a fish that's not really big enough, sometimes you don't even bother to cast at them. So, I definitely don't cast that much during sight fishing conditions.
I know you're standing up in the kayak, you're looking around, you know, you got to go real slow when you sight fishing though, huh? Especially if the water is not really crystal clear.
Yeah. Redfish, you can catch them right by the kayak, but they also can be real skittish at times too. So it's really important not to make too much commotion in the water. If you pedaling along and you start to see some fish coming up, it's important to just stand up real slow and careful not to spook the area. So
yeah. Now we were having this conversation earlier. We were talking, and I was actually out fishing. Brendan, you were telling that story earlier about the trout that jumped up and landed on your top water. So I was out fishing this weekend with Tyler doing a little scouting for Rum on the River, and I'm in the marsh and I'm in this little pocket and I've got a bait with a jig head on it, and I see this little pocket. It wasn't big. I said, that looks like a pretty good spot for a redfish. I didn't see anything in it. Let me throw it in there. I throw it in there. My bait hits the water. This redfish, he's about 18 inches, wasn't that big, jumps out the water. I spooked the crap out of him. Jumps out the water. Almost lands on the bank. He was so freaked out by my bait. I'm thinking, that wasn't the quietest presentation, I guess. And I was just laughing. I was like, well, I guess there was a redfish there. Well, he clearly was pissed off at my bait because he came back into the water and then hit my bait and took off with it. And I just had a laugh thinking,
Yeah.
what's he doing? He got all afraid of this little bait.
Uh-huh.
He jumps out and gets it in there. But, you've got a real quiet presentation, you're not making a bunch of noise. And we were talking about hooks because what I was telling you about, I had a problem with I lost 6 fish this weekend. I don't know how. I had them hooked up. It wasn't like they hit it and got off. I mean, they hit it. They were on for a good 30 seconds, 40 seconds. I'm fighting them. They're running around. And then just like that, they're off. And I'm thinking to myself, I can't have this happen on tournament day. I mean, not like you lose one, you understand. 6?
Right.
6 is a lot. So I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing. And we talked about the hooks. And I know you told me this before. The hooks you use or the hooks you like to use are a certain size when you're catching bigger redfish. And maybe tell us, the audience, a little bit about that and what you find important in your hook. Because a lot of people think a hook's a hook, but it's really not. It's really a hook.
Right.
A good hook for catching bigger redfish are important. And maybe you can share some of that, which we were telling me earlier today.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can catch redfish on all types of hooks, but of course in tournaments you're looking for that big, 8-pound, 26.5 or whatever is redfish. And I think it's important to find a hook with some backbone, some meat, some muscle. So I like to go with a 5/0 hook. I really don't fish with anything smaller than a 5/0. Sometimes I'll go all the way up to a 6/0. The smallest I really ever fished with was a 4. But I can count on maybe one hand how many times I've done that. So my preference is a 5/0 or a 6/0. And just like Brendan said, he fishes with I think you said 30 or 40 pound, Brendan, for redfish. Yeah. Well, I do the same thing. I fish with mostly 40. Sometimes I'll beef it up to 50.
We're talking about braid, 40 or 50 braid. Yeah,
braid. And with that 5/0 hook, you can set that hook real hard on those fish. Because, you got to think about a redfish mouth is real tough. It's not like a speckled trout. So you set that hook real hard and you sort of muscle them in when you have that 40 or 50 pound braid with a 5/0 hook. So,
yeah. And so is there a particular brand type hook that you like to use?
There's actually a couple of brands I like to use. I like to use the Owner Beast. Owner makes a hook, and it has it's the Beast line. I think Brendan knows what I'm talking about. It has a real wide gap. It's very, very strong. You set the hooks good on a redfish with that hook, and they're not coming off. It's very slim chance that they're coming off. Another brand I like to use is Eagle Claw. Eagle Claw has a hook. It's a weedless hook. It's weighted and it has the little screw lock on it.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing I like about the Eagle Claw is that it's a certain angle. I don't know if I have one with me on my desk, and I think I don't. But anyway, if you ever get a chance to check those out, the angle that hook is made, I think, in my opinion, I think that plays a big factor of me not losing fish. I really, really rarely lose a hookup on an Eagle Claw hook. I don't know what it is, but I think it's most likely the angle that it's made.
And so that's it's got like the little corkscrew on the front that you can put in through the nose of the bait?
It's basically, it looks just like, I don't know if y'all can see it. It looks just like this. And this, I believe this is the Eagle Claw hook, if I'm not mistaken. But you see how the point of this hook is almost slanted downward?
Yeah.
It's just something about that angle. Like every time I catch a fish on that Eagle Claw hook, I have to get my pliers out. I can't get it out with my hand.
Wow.
Every time. Yeah. So it has to be the angle.
Is that the type, I mean, can you use that hook on just a regular type soft plastic if you want to?
Yeah.
Or does it have to be a certain type of like a big swim bait or something?
No. I actually had the crawfish rigged on that. So you can easily put a crawfish lure on there, or you can go with a swim bait, a little paddle tail. It's really up to you. So different sizes.
Here's a problem I've had recently when I'm hooking up the hooks like that with the Eagle Claw hook you had on there, and when I put the bait on the hook, it keeps sliding down. It doesn't like stay level, and clearly I'm doing something wrong when I'm hooking it, when I'm putting the hook into the body, because it just doesn't feed right.
That's a very common issue. One of the tricks you can do, like for instance, You see how this is red? So
Yeah.
you mean that it keeps sliding down like that?
Yeah, it keeps sliding
Okay.
down like that.
Well, a simple trick you can do is just kind of bury that point inside the plastic. So you have the point sticking out right there. So once you rig it, you kind of raise it up like that and kind of push it in. And therefore the tip of that hook is buried inside the plastic. So when the fish bites, it's going to pop out and bam.
So you don't have any issues with it affecting the bite at all, because that's one of the things I look at. It's like, is this going to affect the bite?
Well, if you set the hook strong enough, it'll rip through that plastic and it'll penetrate into the mouth of the fish. So it also helps with if you're fishing in a lot of grassy areas. So if you're fishing in a lot of grassy areas and you rig it up weedless, that if the point of that hook is still sticking out, you can snag some grass. So it's important that you kind of tuck that point inside that plastic, and therefore you can just drag it over that grass very easily, not get hooked up in the grass. That's why a lot of people like to stay away from grassy areas, because it gets very frustrating. So,
yeah, it does. I hate grassy areas. I know it's really good. I know it's really good.
Brendan?
Grassy areas. Grassy
For redfish,
areas. You don't like grassy areas, Brendan?
No, I like grassy areas for redfish.
Yeah, you gotta love it, man. That's where all the fat guys are.
That's where all the fat fish are.
I hate pulling up that drive and having to paddle through that grass. It just drives me crazy.
The grass is thick, but I find that once you kind of figure out how to maneuver through that grass with that pedal drive and keep it fluttered up, it's really not that hard. It's not that hard at all.
Yeah, I've gone through areas in Reggio that have just been like just murder.
You don't know what you're doing. That's all.
Yeah. I don't know. I saw Steve Lassard come in one day after a redfish run. He was muddy from top to bottom on his kayak through grass, trying to get to those big fat reds.
Yeah, I remember that. That.
Speaking of which, I've gotten to actually go out probably 3 times in the last 2 weeks. So I've really gotten to do that, and it's a funny story actually. I was off last Wednesday, I think, and I wanted to go fishing. And my wife's like, look, you're always out of town, and I could, what, you want to go fishing? Why don't you stay here in the morning and help me with our daughter and stuff? I said, babe, I really want to go fishing. I know it's during the week and I'm off. And I said, I said, some of the guys, they've been talking smack. They just don't think I'm going to be able to go and place at Rome on the River. And
does that work for you, Sean?
What's that? Well, yeah.
Does that work for you?
She says, well, let me say so. She says, well, what guys have been talking smack? I said, well, Terry Pham. Terry Pham's been talking some smack. He says, there's no way that I'm going to win or that I'm going to even place, and he's going to bury me. And she goes, wait a minute. She goes, the popping cork guy, the guy that only fishes with a popping cork in the grass, Terry Pham? I said, yes, that Terry Pham. She goes, well, baby, you got to go fishing then. I said, you can't not, beat him at the tournament. So I said, all right, I appreciate that, baby. So I went fishing. And actually, I did real well. I did pretty good out there. I threw everything back. But look, here's what I'm noticing. These redfish are skinny. I can't find any fat redfish right now. And I don't know if it's me or if it's the area or if they're just skinny right now. So,
I think it's both. It's probably you.
Yeah.
And then it's probably the area as well. But I mean, it's
so me and the area I'm fishing. So basically,
are you fishing the same area over and over and over again?
Well, it's the same area, but not the same area, right? But I've seen pictures of other people fishing other areas, and the fish are all skinny.
No, I mean,
I keep
don't know
hoping
what
it's
to
going
say
to
about
change.
that one. But I noticed when I pre-fished once, like I told you last week, during the middle of the week, and I noticed a lot of skinny fish. I mean, I did see some real nice fish floating around, but of course, I didn't cast at them. I'm smarter than you.
Well, yeah. I mean, you see the skinny fish, you're just going to avoid them. He's like, oh, that redfish there is only 7 pounds. I'm looking for the 9-pounder. It's not there.
Yeah, I saw a couple of nice fish, but there's, like you said, there's redfish all over the place. They're
all over right now.
All over the place.
Yeah.
But I mean, the heat has a lot to do with, the size of those redfish as well. I mean, we in the hottest days of the year right now. It's kind of starting to cool off right now, but the heat definitely plays a factor in that. So.
I have my own theory, and I was thinking about this because I'm trying to wonder. I said the areas that I'm fishing are known for having some pretty fat redfish, and this is what I'm noticing is, and I mentioned this last time. There's so much shrimp in the marsh right now, and I mean, I saw some shrimp jumping that were the size of my hand, skipping across the water, and those redfish aren't cruising and feeding because they're not having to, because they're just filling up on shrimp. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, well, they're just on a very lean diet right now. They're just filling up on shrimp. Shrimp, pretty lean, and they're not real fatty like some real fat fish out there. And so I'm just thinking maybe it's the diet right now. There's so much shrimp in the marsh. They haven't been blown out. They're just gorging on shrimp, and they're not filling up. And, in the wintertime, a lot of times they start feeding on like trout, or start feeding on the fin fish and really kind of fattening up for the winter months. So I don't know. I could be completely wrong, but that's kind of the working theory I'm going with right now, as far as that goes.
Yeah, it could be a mixture of both.
Yeah. So look, we've got all kind of launch spots available for people fishing on Rome on the River. I'm going to mention a couple. You guys let me know if I missed something, but starting in St. Bernard Parish, if people are looking, well, where can I go fish and catch some redfish? I'm kind of new. We're going to go launch it. I mean, you've got Campos down in Shell Beach. You've got the Breton Sound Marina down in Hopedale. There's Sweetwater Marina down in Delacroix, and then you've got the Reggio launch right there. It's got a little honor box over there. So I mean, those are all 4 launches. All have redfish. So those are certainly 4 launches you can go to if you're looking to fish in St. Bernard Parish. Plaquemines Parish, starting at the northernmost launch would be Myrtle Grove Marina. You come down a little bit, a few more miles, you've got Bayou Log Cabins over there, Lake Hermitage. You go a little bit further up the road, you've got Happy Jack Marina over there. You go a little bit further up the road, you've got Joshua's, which is another good place to catch redfish. And then you've got the Empire Delta Marina, I think it is, Brendan, Delta Marina. And then
did you say Port Sulphur?
No, Port Sulphur. That's a good point. You got Port Sulphur right there behind the high school. That's another good spot. It's a free launch. If you don't know where it's at, send me a text message. I can show you. But you go out there behind the high school. You go with the little levee launch, and then park over there. It's a real good spot. And then certainly you've got Venice. So you've got tons.
It's a lot of areas.
Yellow Cotton.
Yellow Cotton Bay, right there at the pump station. Is another area to fish.
Spanish Pass, which is like at the corner when you get over the levee in Venice, right there. It's really good. You didn't mention Pips in St. Bernard.
Pips did not mention right there in Hopedale Lagoon.
You said Joshua's, right?
Joshua's, we got Joshua's.
You got Joshua's.
So I mean, you've got 12 launches that winning fish could come from any of those launches.
Definitely.
So you don't need to combat launch or know any secret areas. The redfish are everywhere. If you fish the tournament, you're almost guaranteed to catch one. It's real easy. I mean, I can tell you what I've been catching them on the last 3 weekends. Been a 1/4 ounce Johnson weedless gold spoon. You throw it out and you retrieve it, and that's all you have to do. That's why it's worked well for me, because I don't have to put any thought to it. So you've got that, and then you've got also Point of La Hache. You got Point of La Hache out there. Bechel's, I think it's Bechel's Marina. Yep. So Tyler just reminded me of that. So I wanted to make sure everybody knew that was out there as well. Gulp, I know, and you can throw a popping cork out there right now, and you're going to probably catch a redfish. So plenty of spots out there. But Caleb, I know you swap up baits. I know we talked earlier when we first met. You kind of gave me a real good rundown of how you like to start out. Do you find that your baits change over the course of the years? Maybe what you're fishing earlier in the years is a little bit different than the fall, or are they all basically the same?
For the most part, it's kind of basically the same. I really, once I get out there on the water, I kind of fish the conditions. I see how they're feeding, what they're feeding on, and I kind of just, duplicate that. So I can use the same baits all year long. Yeah.
So when you're starting out in the morning, we're able to launch at 6. It's going to be a little dark still. I think sunrise about 6:30. I mean, you can have enough light to probably start fishing when it's dark like that. I mean, it's not really bright enough really for a good spoon, a gold spoon. What are you throwing that early in the morning that you think you might want to something to get their attention maybe early?
Early in the morning like that, there's two things that I'm throwing. Is either just, of course, your traditional top water bait, or a lot of people, believe it or not, struggle with trying to knock down the cadence of a top water. They don't know how to, do the right cadence for it. So I recommend going with just a subsurface crankbait. It works very similar to a top water.
Was that the man's? Was that the man's baby? Man's Waker?
No, this is the Livingston bull nose, and it's just like a regular substance. All of them pretty much work the same. They just got kind of different swimming motions.
Yeah.
But this is the bull nose by Livingston, and this one right here is similar to the man's. It's a Cabela's and Bass Pro brand right here.
Now, how far are those going to dive? I mean, you said subsurface. What type of depth are you looking at on those?
I mean, like literally right under the surface. So like you can see
6 inches or so?
Couple of inches. Yeah, you can see the actual wake of the bait coming through. Yeah. So it works very similar to a top water.
And those look like bass baits.
Yeah, you can use them for bass fishing. They work very well. They come in different sizes. Like I said, you look at this one. This is a certain size. Then you got this one's a certain size, and then you got this one. So you just kind of figure out what size you want to throw, chunk it out there, and just like the gold spoon, it's not nothing hard. You just cast it out and retrieve it back in. So a very good, easy lure to use for those that struggle with the top water.
Now with that particular bait, the faster you retrieve, the deeper it'll dive?
If you hold your rod tip down and kind of and reel in a little bit faster, it'll dive a little deeper. Deeper. Yeah, I recommend that you keep your rod tip up and just have a steady retrieve, and it'll stay right above the surface.
Okay, and so that's a good bait early. It's a big bait that they can see kind of really before the sun gets up. That might really kind of grab their attention.
Yeah, and it has a rattle in it too, so they can hear it as well.
Yeah. And okay, so that's kind of an early morning bait. Now, say the sun's coming out a little bit, you got a little sunlight out there, the water's looking pretty good. What are you throwing at that point?
At that point, it depends. Depends on how the sun is sitting, because I think that the true sight fishing conditions really don't start until about 10 o'clock. After 10. That's when the sun is high enough for you to really do the best sight fishing that you can.
Okay.
So in between like 8:30 to 10 o'clock or 9:30, somewhere around that time frame, I like to throw like a spinner bait. Sometimes I'll chunk out a gold spoon, something that can give them a little flash so they can see it as well. Now, there's sometimes where if the conditions are right, you can still sight fish that early. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes they're tailing. Sometimes the water is clean enough and you can get close enough to where you can actually see them. But I like to wait till about 10 o'clock to really dive into my true sight fishing techniques.
So before then, are you kind of just looking for tails, maybe looking for some busting bait and kind of throwing towards those areas, or maybe with some water, some bait moving?
Yeah, I'm basically looking for tails. I'm looking for pushes. A lot of times, if you pattern down the area very well, like say if I'm fishing a certain pond or a flat and there's a cut that leads into a canal, if there's sometimes where you can almost time when a school of redfish are going to come from out of the canal or out of the lake into that pond or that flat. So if you can pattern those redfish, if they're schooling, you can pattern them very well. You can kind of sit there and anchor out and just wait for them to come moving through and catch them like that. So
really,
yeah, I've done that many a times. And I mean, this time of the year, in the fall, those redfish school up real good in the lakes and stuff like that. So you can definitely find them schooling on the banks of the lakes, coming into the ponds or the flats and things like that. You can definitely find them schooling if the tide is right.
Now, are you one of these guys that are of the theory, like, if the water's dark and it's dark outside, you use the darker bait, and if it's lighter outside and the water's clear, you use the lighter bait? or do you just kind of experiment a little bit more with your baits and find out what they want that day?
I normally start off with the traditional. Okay, if it's kind of cloudy and the water clarity is kind of on the dark side, I'll throw either black and chartreuse, purple and chartreuse. My favorite to throw is Morning Glory. Morning Glory, for those that don't know what that is, I don't have one with me, but Morning Glory is basically a black and chartreuse with silver and red glitter inside the body. And I find that's my favorite dark color to throw is Morning Glory. So I'm pretty sure Brendan knows all about that.
Brendan, you're a fan of the Morning Glory?
Oh yeah, that's my favorite nighttime trout bait.
I've heard about some of your nighttime trout fishing. Todd Lewis was telling me about a nighttime trout fishing expedition y'all had down in
Black Top Waters and Morning Glory Plastics.
Wow, man, I'm taking notes for anybody there. I'm taking all these notes. I'm glad this will be recorded for posterity's sake, so I can go back later.
I found one in my bag, so
I gotta see.
If y'all can see the black.
Oh yeah.
With the red, yeah, that's Morning Glory, and of course it has a chartreuse tail. So
man, and what is
that's
that?
my favorite.
Like a little cockahoe or something.
Yeah, it's just a little cockahoe. It's made by Miralore. So, yep.
I think I got some of those. I never used it though.
Yeah, that's why you can't catch no big red.
I got a whole bag full of those things around. And you know what? My problem is I like to fish with pretty baits, and so that black with the sparkly with that's just.
Oh man!
I want something nice, and it's like the purple or it's the clear with the sparkles and the glitters. And I said that's such a pretty bait. If I'm a fish, I want to bite that pretty bait right there.
Now, like you said, nice and pretty. Like if the conditions are real good and they got clear water and things like that, I'm more of a natural color guy. I like to fish with a lot of natural color baits. The more natural it looks, the better it is for me. So that's what I like to throw in good conditions.
And you like a lot of those creature baits too, don't you?
Yes.
The crawfish bait, those type of things.
Crawfish.
I still have yet to catch a redfish on one of those things.
Yeah, I like the crawfish. I like the tube, the salt tube, 4-inch salt tube. I love throwing those whenever they're real skittish. I put those, I rig those weedless on a weightless hook, and I just toss it out there and let it flutter to the bottom, and they nail it.
It's just a tube.
Yeah, it's just a tube.
I've got a bag of those that you
yeah, because I told you to buy them so you can catch some redfish, and you still can't catch no redfish.
I've never used them. I said, what the hell am I going to fish with a tube? I said, this looks like I should have something else on here. I got this fancy black spoon with this big skirt, this thing that spins up front, and it was just the prettiest looking bait. And I hadn't caught anything on it yet. It was like $8, and I threw it for like 2 hours the other day, and I couldn't buy a bite on it.
Couldn't get nothing, huh?
It was just an awesome looking bait. It's got the thing that makes the waves, and it's got the tail, and it's got the skirt, and it's got the spoon.
It's the Dogri bait.
Yeah, it suckered me in good. It suckered me in like the Whopper Plopper. I think some guys got all excited about the Whopper Plopper and then didn't catch anything.
The Whopper Plopper's good.
Yeah.
Hey, I was about to say, look, that Whopper Plopper is amazing. I mean, I catch a lot of bass on it, but I've also caught some redfish, so it works. It works.
Yeah. You can come, Kalon. You can come with us to Gunnersville and catch some bass.
I mean, if I would have known ahead of time, I would have came.
It's 2 weeks away. You could use.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
It's a big tournament, man.
Yeah, I really want to go. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna try to go next year.
We need to get a group of us and go fish the Hobie Bass. Brendan, you need to put in that yard pass in advance, get down there and get like 10 or 15 of us to go fish that Hobie Bass Open down there and just have a party. We can all go out there and show them how it's done in Louisiana style with the crankbaits and the top waters and the gold spoons. I'm bringing a popping cork. I'll be honest with you. I'm bringing a popping cork.
They released a new schedule, and the one that's in Florida seems pretty close.
Oh, there's one in Florida?
Yeah, or Georgia or something. It's
well, there's one in. I know there's a couple in Texas. Well, there's one in Texas, Arkansas, Alabama, and Florida, I think, and they're all within like 7 or 8 hours. So it's not too bad. It's doable.
Yeah, it's doable, definitely.
And I don't bass fish, but I tell you what, somebody was showing me, I think it was online, a picture of a bass they caught in Gunnersville. It was 27 inches, and
27.
it was like 20. It was this big around.
A bass?
A bass. Was it 20?
Are you sure?
Yeah. No, I know it was 27 inches because the measuring board I bought, they make you buy these certain measuring boards, was 26 inches. And I said, well, hell, if I catch a 27-inch bass, I'm going to be screwed out of an inch because they're not going to be able to verify anything over 26 inches.
Yeah, but at the same time, you caught a 27-inch bass.
I caught a 27-inch trout. I can catch a 27-inch bass. I'll be the luckiest son bugger out there twice, lightning striking twice in the same place. I mean, to tell you, that mouth on that bass was like that. It was huge. And I'm thinking, wow. I don't know. I don't know if we have a picture of it. I think Chuck said it was a Lake Gunnersville bass. The thing was massive, So I'm looking forward to going down there and fishing it. So, Kalon, you're fishing Rumble on the River. You're signed up. Yes. Yeah.
I'm not signed up yet, but I will be signed up.
Oh, you got to sign up. So you're gonna sign up. Have you decided where you're fishing at yet?
Yes, I have.
You have.
It's right here in my noggin.
You gonna share some of the information with us, maybe?
Yeah. So basically, where I'm fishing at, it's
same place Brendan tells me.
It's here in Louisiana.
Yeah,
it's here in Louisiana. It has marsh. It's kind of, it could be brackish water. It could be salt water. It all depends, So it has redfish in there. It has trout, a couple of flounder, things like that. Black drum. So that's where I'm fishing at.
That's good. That's good. Before, look, Tyler sent a photo to the group here.
Yeah, I saw that.
Post it. Oh, look, I'm going to show it to the camera so everybody can see it. Okay. So here's the picture. Can y'all see that?
Yeah, I can see it.
That thing is 27 inches. It's massive.
I thought you meant that somebody in the tournament caught a 27-inch bass.
Well, I don't know. Maybe he was in the tournament. I don't know. But that thing, it just looks like a tank. I mean, it's huge.
Yeah, that's a stud for sure.
Yeah. He says it was 13 pounds. A 13-pound bass. That's incredible. I'm going to get me one of those. I'm going to get me one of those 13-pound bass when I'm up there. So just to remind everybody that this is a 2 redfish tournament, and it's a minimum slot this year. We're doing a 22-inch minimum slot. Couple reasons for that. One, realistically, you're not going to come in with a 16 and 18-inch redfish and win the tournament or even have a chance of placing. It's just a reality. And one of the things we find is a lot of people, you catch an 18-inch redfish, and you're like, do I keep it? Do I throw it back? Man, what if I can't upgrade? This is going to make everybody's decision easier. We throw it back in, and you focus on the bigger redfish. One of it's conservation on our part. We want to have people not have as big of an issue culling fish. So, throw back the smaller fish, let them get bigger, focus on the bigger fish. You've got 22 inches, 27. There are plenty of redfish out there in that size range. So just stick with it and focus on it. It's 2 fish. Lines in at 6 a.m. Launch time is actually at 6 a.m. So don't launch from there. Certainly you can get your kayak, get it positioned, get it ready to go. Don't set up from the launch before 6 a.m. Also, I think weigh-ins from 2 to 3. Tyler, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the weigh-ins from 2 to 3. It's at the Hooters parking lot right there on Bellchase Highway. So if you're coming in from St. Bernard Parish, you can take the ferry across. It's not that far if you decide to come in and grab I-10 and just get off the exit. It's really close. So you shouldn't have a problem. I mean, 3 o'clock's a late weigh-in, so you shouldn't have any issue. I think everybody's going to have the redfish probably by 10, I suspect, except for me because I'm going to lose a bunch and then have to keep fishing till 1 o'clock.
Or sight fishermen.
The sight fishermen, guys who don't start looking for fish till 10, Kalon, you can sleep in. You don't have to worry about getting to 8, and then you can really start fishing around 10 o'clock in the morning.
Hey, I might catch a nice 8-pounder on that subsurface crankbait, so I think I'm going to be up early.
You know what? I at one point was fishing with that man's baby -1 bait, and I mean, I was tearing them up one year on that bait, and then I haven't used it again. I just completely forgot about it. And I'm thinking, I was like, man, I'm going to throw that bait this weekend.
Yeah.
I'm going to try it out for a little while and see what I can do.
It's definitely a good bait.
And the great thing, it's good. When you're in a foot of water, you can throw that bait. It's hard when you start getting into popping corks and things like that and throwing it in the marsh. You just can't do it. The grass, it's low, everything like that. So, I'm definitely going to try that out. One thing I'll tell everybody, something I noticed, I was out there Sunday, me and Tyler, and actually Tyler's dad, all three of us got to go fishing together. And I always enjoy it, when I got there with Tyler or any of my friends really. And he had his dad out there. We were out fishing around. This is a funny story. So we're out there fishing. I mean, I'm hooking up, but I'm losing fish. And Tyler's dad's seeing me, and he's seeing me hook up and losing fish. And he's like, "Man, what are you doing?" I said, "Look, I'm just throwing this particular bait." I'm not going to say throwing this particular bait. He said, "Well, how are you fishing that bait?" I said, "Well, I'm throwing it, popping it up a little bit, letting it sink, pop it up a little bit, letting it sink." He said, "Okay, let me try that." So he throws it out, pops it up. This is his first cast. I'm right next to him. Pops it up. As it's falling, this big redfish just smacks the bait. He's like, "Whoa, I'm all hooked up. The rod's been over." Pop! The line breaks. And he's like broken hearted. I'm like, he's been fishing all morning, waiting for this redfish. He finally hooks up and the line breaks. And he's like, "Just Jesus, how could this happen to me?" I'm like, "Yeah, it happens. All my redfish come off the hook. I'm not breaking any lines. I just can't keep them hooked." So anyway, but we had a good time. The weather was beautiful. Tyler forgot his sunscreen and decided that long pants weren't the option for him with the blonde hair and the untanned legs. So he got a pretty good sunburn and had to go in early. But he learned his lesson. He's still a young guy. We wear long pants and long shirts for a reason. So, well, guys, look, I think we're coming to the end of our show here. It's 9:42. I know we've all got to get to bed and get to work in the morning. So I appreciate you guys coming on. Brendan, I know you signed up, but you're not fishing this weekend. Basically, you signed up so you can fish the championship in November. And I know you're just drooling over there about that. Leeville, you've had so much success in Leeville. Kalon hates me right now. He says, "How could you put the championship in Leeville? Why can't we have it in Pack?"
Are we allowed to catch trout in Leeville?
You are allowed to catch trout. 10 trout this year. 10 trout this year.
And how many reds?
Kalen's asking me for a 5 redfish tournament in Pack with no trout. He says,
how many redfish for the championship?
2.
2? All right, so 2 redfish and 10 trout.
2 redfish and 10 trout.
All right, so
I think there's going to be
bringing in
20 pounds of redfish and 20 pounds of trout.
Look, it's November. Trout, it's not January, it's November. There should be some pretty nice trout being caught in Leeville in November.
Oh, yeah.
Brendan, you agree? Brendan's like,
somebody's going to catch a 5-pound. Somebody's going to catch a 5-pound trout.
Somebody's going to be that guy.
With these fishermen we got coming in, someone is going to catch a 4 or 5 pound trout. I think we got some really good guys fishing this. I think we're going to have some stud redfish. It's going to be really interesting. I really wish we could do a 2-day tournament. I think it'd be neat, but it's going to be one day. We're going to have a good time down there. We'll talk more about that as we get closer. But look, guys, if you haven't signed up for Rumble on the River yet, sign up now. It's going to be a lot of fun. You're going to meet some great people. Here, classic example, 2 guys I met probably 4 or 5 years ago, and just been friends with them ever since. And when I go red fishing, I'm going with Kalon. When I go trout fishing, I'm going with Brendan. And I learn a lot every time I get to go with those guys. And really appreciate you guys coming on tonight, sharing some of your information with you. And just so y'all know, Kalon has got all his hardware in the back there. And you can see it. And he's got all these plaques and everything. And he's earned every bit of it. But I'll say this about Kalon. He doesn't have kids, and he's just recently married. All of Brendan's hardware, I understand, is in the attic in a box somewhere.
I do have this trophy with me right here.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
It's big.
Well, all I'm saying is come when I'm in my new house that we're building right now, and I'm in my podcast room. What you're going to see right behind me is going to be that belt. That's going to say Bayou Coast Kayak Fishing Club Champion, Leeville 2019. It's going to be right there, guys. So y'all get ready for that one. I'm coming for it, Steve. So, well, look, guys, thanks so much for coming on tonight. Brendan, I'm sure I'll talk to you soon. Kalon, I will see you this weekend. Good luck, man. I know it's going to be a great tournament.
Oh yeah.
Good luck,
Looking
guys.
forward to it.
Thanks a lot, Brendan. Thanks, Kaylin.
All right.
Bye.